Hi, everyone. I gave birth to my first baby and first grandchild on both sides 4 months ago. She is the light of my life, and I've been as happy as a clam, except for whenever I have to encounter my MIL. I'm starting to get physical responses, i.e., my heart sinks every time she texts to come over or arrives at our house. My heart beats so insanely fast whenever she is around me, and the thought of her just puts me in such a funk. I want to talk to my husband about it, but I really don't know how to approach this, as I don't want this to affect our marriage. After all, she is his mom. And I would be hurt if I found out he absolutely couldn't stand my mom, so I was hoping to get some opinions before I had a talk with my husband. Things weren't always this way. Actually, they used to not be at all. I used to like her. I used to think she was a very kind woman. Sure, maybe a little overly kind, often overly flattering and complimenting me. At first, I thought it was because she was excited that her son had a girlfriend and she wanted to make me feel comfortable and accepted. But now, almost 6 years later, she seems to be extremely fake. Things took a turn when I got pregnant. My Mile has been ready and waiting to become a grandmother for a while. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of heartbreak as her eldest son and wife have been on a difficult journey to parenthood. So I understand that the prospect of a baby arriving in the family would be exciting for her. However, I feel like she has been acting overly eager and at this point invasive, which has been the case from the very start of my pregnancy. Having gone through a very private loss myself with first pregnancy, I was extremely guarded and didn't want to announce anything until I was fully ready, which would have been around 14 weeks. I was planning on doing something cute and sharing the good news with her in a special way, but that moment felt ruined when she just decided to ask DH if I was pregnant over the phone. I was not part of the conversation. DH knew I had plans for a cute surprise for her, but in the moment was not able to lie to her and said I was. Although disappointed, I understood how my husband could cave when put on the spot. However, I was a little irked that my MIL just straight up asked him, didn't bother to ask me, couldn't even wait to ask in person with the three of us, just her, DH, and the phone. I just felt put aside. And besides, woman to woman, especially women who know about pregnancy loss, I was surprised she couldn't just wait for me to be comfortable to announce my pregnancy. Sure, I might have had a small bump then, but honestly, it could have been weight gain too. Anyway, fast forward to perhaps 20 weeks. We have dinner with her, to which, once again, I just felt like the line between excitement and invasion was being crossed. She said how excited she was to teach them milestones, like swimming. Meanwhile, both DH and I were lifeguards growing up and loved to swim, so it's not like we are incapable of doing it ourselves. But most importantly, where does one get off saying they are just going to teach somebody's baby milestones? The conversation got worse when I didn't respond to her vision and then proceeded to beg me to let her do it, quite literally said, "Please, please, please," Sabrina Carpenter style. That night, I told DH how uncomfortable this made me feel and that my child's milestones were not up for grabs. I was and am excited to be a parent and am not willing to just give up some of my baby's firsts. He agreed with me, but that was about it. MIL also insisted many times that she would retire early so she could take care of the baby while we both returned to work. Sure, that's a nice offer, but hello, my mother is alive and well as well. Why is my side of the family being dismissed? A big argument that happened was when I was about 30 weeks. It was Mother's Day, and DH and I spent it separately. I was with my mom, he was with his. That day, he had told his mom, per our OB's recommendation, that anyone who wanted to be with our baby needed to make sure they were up to date with their vaccines, flu, COVID, and Tdap. DH told me she was furious, that we were asking a lot from people, and basically said we were being overprotective. How is this asking too much? Meanwhile, retiring from your 30-year career is not too much? Makes no sense to me. She called him later that day, crying, and apparently apologized for her reaction. Supposedly, she was already up to date with her vaccines, but her initial reaction really angered me. Who is she to tell me I am overprotective? Later in the pregnancy, she kept asking my husband for my links to my baby shower wish list, not to purchase stuff for us, but to buy exactly what I wanted for her house, so that she would be ready to welcome us and the baby. She asked to get the same car seat as us, to which I finally told my husband to let her get one. I told him I wasn't sure what she was envisioning here, but to spare her spending hundreds of dollars on a car seat that she wouldn't need, because there is no way in hell I am letting my newborn in someone else's car without me or him there. He agreed and mildly told her she didn't need one, to which she replied with saying she felt unprepared for the arrival of the baby. This bothered me again, and I reminded my husband this is our baby, not hers. We have all the items we need and more, and as long we feel prepared, then that's all that matters. She went ahead and purchased a pack-and-play anyway that day. Fast forward to my daughter's birth. I ended up needing a C-section as my induction had failed after 48 hours. We had kept the baby's name a secret, mainly because we were still undecided until she arrived, LOL, and her name ended up being completely different to what I had alluded to in the past to Mill when discussing names. Because her name is a lot more classic and familiar than what I had alluded to, Mill said I tricked her. I was very annoyed with this, because the choice of my daughter's name had obviously nothing to do with her, and I felt like that response was a little passive-aggressive. The day we were released from the hospital, she had asked that we stop by her house first, to which my husband said absolutely not. She then asked if she could come over. I broke down crying. I was half naked and in pain from the incision. There was no way I was ready to have her come to the house. How could she not know that? I felt bad for breaking down crying, but I was just too frustrated. DH told her no, and she found a way to stop by regardless 2 days later. At this point, I started feeling very irked by her, but I am one of faith and really try to be a good person, so I prayed and continue to pray that I let things go, but things got so much worse as time went on. I tried to be nice and include her in activities. I invited her to join me in bathing my daughter and invited her to go on walks with me. On one of our walks, we went to Starbucks, and while I waited for my order, MIL just decided to take the stroller and walk outside with the baby. It happened all too fast. She grabbed the handle and said, "I am going to take the baby outside while you wait." She and my baby were out of my sight, and I felt so nervous and powerless. I wasn't ready for my newborn to be out of my sight. I kept opening and closing the door to the Starbucks so I could get a glimpse of them until my order was ready. I ran outside and grabbed the stroller back. I was so upset and shaky, but she just smiled, saying that the baby was so alert and loved looking at all the tree colors outside and loved her time outside rather than inside the cafe. I shrugged it off because I was now back with my baby, and that's all that mattered to me, but was really annoyed that Chester ran off with the baby. It made me uncomfortable, and she didn't bother to check with me. I feel like she became progressively more possessive with the baby. She once had a pizza party for us. She said she would eat a few slices, and then she could hold the baby while I ate. I could eat one-handed regardless, but I didn't even time to react. She barely took a bite of her pizza, stood up, and reached her arms for the baby. I told her I was fine and she could finish her pizza first, but she said she was done and basically grabbed the baby out of my arms. I was fuming. I took a slice and sat in front of her. Meanwhile, I could see and feel her staring at me while she held my baby. It was weird. It almost like an Animal Kingdom kind of thing, and my stomach is turning just typing this up. After that, I really didn't like her holding my baby. It was too much. After a few days, we house sat for her, and she asked if she could hold the baby. I nodded silently, but it's almost like she knew I wasn't happy, as she insisted and asked again, to which I responded sassily with maybe. She was on her way out and begged, please, again, as she wailed out of the door.
Later that night, we had a few friends over who hadn't met the baby yet. One of them is now a dear friend of mine, and she is trying to get pregnant herself. So after she was seated and I felt comfortable, I offered her to hold the baby. Of course, Mill walks in on this, sees my friend holding the baby, and goes, "Oh wow, you get to hold the baby? I never get to hold her." I stared Mill down. I was so pissed. I told my husband what had happened, and he agreed that she was out of line and offered to talk to her.
I said no, as I wanted to settle this myself. I was going to send her a long text message, but decided it might be best to just talk in person. The next day, we were still staying at her house, and after a pretty silent day, she came to me while I was changing the baby and asked almost nervously how I was doing. I told her fine, but that I had to talk to her, and told her I really didn't appreciate the comment she had made in front of my friend, and that it felt very passive-aggressive. She profusely apologized and said she didn't mean it that way. She was just upset at the situation because she had also hurt her back and was bedridden for a few days, and therefore couldn't hold the baby. She was frustrated by this, and not the baby. I knew she was blowing smoke up my butt, but she started to cry, and I felt like there was no need to waste more time on this conversation. I tried being honest with her, and she couldn't do the same, and resorted to crying. Fine. She apologized, and I said it was okay. My husband told me it was clear she wasn't being truthful, but I decided to look the other way, hoping that this conversation showed her I was getting annoyed with her behavior and that I have no problem telling her. Fast forward to more recently. Baby is now 4 months old. I am feeling more like myself again, and am trying to enjoy my maternity leave as much as I can. This means I am not often in the house during the afternoons, as I enjoy going on walks or taking my baby to the beach. Well, of course, Mill calls and texts me almost every other day to see if she can stop by our house to see the baby. I sometimes fail to answer her calls because I am genuinely not seeing them. I am taking care of my baby and enjoying the outdoors with her. I've managed to have Mill over maybe twice in 2 weeks, which I think is pretty good. One weekend, she called DH to see if again she could stop by, and I just so happened to be at the hairdresser's that day, so DH said I was not home, although he was home with the baby. She apparently got aggravated and asked if she now had to make a schedule with us to stop by. She is clearly annoyed that I am not always available to host her, but meanwhile would send me long texts and voicemails saying how great of a mother I am for taking the baby out on activities. She ended up still stopping by while I was away, and I just felt weird by that. Recently, I have felt even more insulted by her, as we have decided to get our daughter baptized at the church I grew up going to. It's where I was baptized and where I had the funeral for my father, so the church means a lot to me, but it is out of state. She hasn't said anything, and this is purely my own assumption at this point, but I think she is annoyed that we are going to my church and the church down her road where DH was baptized. I say I am assuming this because the last 2 times she has come over, she said verbatim that the priest was torturing us because he didn't accept DH's brother to be the godfather as he is not confirmed, and is asking us to watch just 3 30-minute videos about baptism. I hardly call that torture, and am again offended. This is my church, and I like this priest. She always acts all high and mighty, saying that kids do not pray anymore and that people need to hold God closer in their lives. Yet these 2 pretty normal requirements from our priests are torture? She's also decided that she will now stop by once a week. I really don't like the idea of her being here once a week. It's too much. She's been so possessive towards my baby, and I am feeling really annoyed. I want to tell my husband how I feel, but with all of this into consideration, am I overreacting?